NTV, KBC, TV47, K24 and KTN, as well as Citizen TV. My name is Sam Kituku from Citizen TV.
And my name is Michelle Ngele Odhiambo from K24 TV.
My name is John Jacob Curie of KBC TV.
And I'm James Smart from NTV.
My name is Ken Mijungu from the Standard Group, KTN.
Happy New Year, Linda Alela, TV47, Cape Media.
All right, and of course we have the President of the Republic, William Samoei Ruto. Good evening, and first of all, how are you doing this evening?
Good evening, good people, and thank you very much for introducing me. I would have introduced myself.
Go ahead.
And Happy New Year to you guys, and Happy New Year to the good people of the Republic of Kenya, wherever you are. It's my wish that we've all, by God's grace, crossed over the year, and we are all beginning this year 2023 together, and we are hopeful that this year is definitely going to be better than last. Mm-hmm. And maybe also to use this opportunity, welcoming you guys here, and to thank Kenyans across the country for, first and foremost, for voting for me and all the other leaders that were elected across the political divide in Kenya. Thank you very much. And secondly, for doing two very important things that sets a new record for us as a country. Voting on issues and driving our country away from ethnic politics. That was a big score for the people of Kenya. And secondly, carrying out our elections peacefully. I think that was a huge mark of maturity of our democracy. And I want to thank all the people of Kenya who voted in this election, who participated in one way or another. And I want to promise them that I will consistently work towards working with all the leaders that have been elected in all the categories to drive our country into the future.
Right, and Mr. President, we want to talk about some 5 key issues. First of all, the cost of living and the state of the economy. We'll also speak about education. We'll speak about governance and politics. We'll also speak about pre-election pledges. And also we'll speak about security, both locally and internationally. And we thank you for making time to have this conversation with us. Let's get started, because at this moment, we remember hearing you on the eve of the transition of the year between 2022 and 2023. And you spoke about a conversation the country will have in 3 months' time about the cost of electricity. We look at how much one has to pay. If you, for instance, you have a bill, you pay 4,000 shillings, and you get your units, about 152 units, you find that 30% is going to fuel energy charge. You also find that the token amount is only 47%, actually less than half the amount that you're paying. And also remember, recently there was a report, a task force by your predecessor that came out and saw that we're paying so much for the cost of energy. Even if you have this conversation in 3 months' time, what will change?
Cost of living, Sam, is a sum total of many things. It's not just energy, right? It's a combination of, in fact, the biggest contributor to the cost of living is the cost of food. Many households spend up to 52% of their monthly income on food. Therefore, if we seriously want to attack the cost of living jigsaw, we must deal with the cost of food. And it is the reason why cost of living was a big part of the conversation Kenyans had in this election. All of us made commitments in many ways. I did. And it's the reason why, when I came into office, the very first thing, among the very first things I did, is to begin the journey to bring back the country to the food, to the trajectory of food production. I ordered immediately that we supply 1.5 million bags of fertilizer the farmers in the short range category. I have progressed that. We now have the first 200,000 metric tons of fertilizer already landed in the country. We intend, as we have done, we've reduced the cost from about 6,000 to 700. I have also instructed that we work with even the land parcels we have within government, ADC, YS, prisons, to make sure that we use them to produce farm inputs, including seeds, and making sure that we are self-sufficient. I have also worked out with the cabinet to ensure that, since we already have a gap that is obvious because of the kind of harvest we've had, the unreliability of rain, the high cost of inputs have contributed to where we are, you know. And for your information, Sam, this is a journey. We didn't get here yesterday.
Right.
We got here because we took 3 years not making the right decisions. We suspended the fertilizer subsidy program. Intervened when farmers were asking for farm inputs. Today, I am promising the farmers of Kenya, just the same way we supplied the first 1.5 million acres, 1.5 million bags of fertilizer, we will supply 6 million bags of subsidized fertilizer to our farmers. We will make sure that they have the correct seed. We will ensure that they have the correct support. We are now working on mechanization. We have a program, Agricultural Finance Corporation, to make sure that we increase our the mechanization of our agriculture. We are currently at around 40%. We want to drive it to 80%. These are some of the interventions that fell through when we didn't get our trajectory right. But what I said, speaking to what you have said on cost of energy,
Right.
There was an attempt, you know, which was not well thought out, to try and introduce subsidies in that space, which failed miserably because we were spending 3 billion shillings every year to subsidize energy. There was no increase in consumption of electricity. There was no reduction of any products that were coming out of our factories. There was no increase of people who were getting employed because we had brought subsidy. It was just a waste. You know, nobody benefited. The consumers did not benefit. It ended up just lining the bottom line of a few companies and a few people.
Right.
So what I have insisted, and what government of Kenya is going to do, we are going to support production of food. We are going to interrogate the cost of energy, right? We have 3-4 lines, which I have instructed, we're going to spend 1 billion shillings to sort out 3 lines of transmission, 3 transmission lines, so that we can retire the plant we have in Moroni that is producing energy at 52 US cents, which is, you know, we are getting power from our hydros at 4 US cents. Can you compare between 4 US cents and 52? And it's because we have power in Takwel, which we are not using maximum because of a transmission line. We have other hydros that we are not using because of transmission line. So I have already instructed that we complete those transmission lines within the next 10 months so that we make sure that we bring down the cost of energy, because we will retire some of the thermal power that is causing this huge cost, right?
So what do you do to the power purchase agreements and the independent power producers? Because according to the task force report, it was talking about the power cost for the financial year 2020, it was 87 billion shillings, which is 66% of the sales. They went ahead to say that, yes, the Kenyan was contributing about 72% of the power, but the resources that they were taking is about 48%. For the independent power producers, they are giving Kenya Power about 25% of power, but they're taking away about of the payments. So how do you deal with that even as you go to the different transmission lines?
Precisely. First, The turbine we are retiring in Moroni belongs to government. It's a Kenyan turbine. So that we will have no conversation. We will just retire that. Then we will have to have a candid discussion with our thermal energy producers. And for your information, we need them. The problem is, for the last 5 years, we haven't generated much of power. We have megawatts of capped geothermal energy, which I have instructed that we should move with speed to unlock that potential. Because much as we want to retire the thermal power, we have a challenge of the amount of supply of power during the peak hours. So we are juggling between making sure that we use what we have efficiently, we generate the much more efficient power sources so that we can begin the journey to retire the thermal ones. But this requires a consistent, approach and consistent follow-up. And that's what I intend to do.
All right. Your Excellency, going back to the cost of living, Kenya National Bureau of Statistics says inflation rate is now at 9.5, at least by November last year. When you come into office, the first thing you do is to remove subsidy on the likes of unga. Now, the big question is, as you run the program on subsidizing the cost of production, is government saying it was unable to also run the program on subsidizing unga so much that you remove the pinch on Kenyans who are feeling the pain as they go to the supermarkets to buy unga?
John, do you know how much those subsidies were costing us? It was costing us 16 billion shillings every year to subsidize fuel. It was costing us 3 billion shillings every did I say every year? Every month.
Every month.
It was costing us 8 billion shillings every month to subsidize unga. It was costing us 3 billion shillings to subsidize electricity. A total of 25, 26 billion shillings every month. The decision to subsidize unga, fuel, and electricity was not an economic decision. It was a political decision. It was meant to placate Kenyans to vote in a certain way. Unfortunately, Kenyans did not buy it because they did not feel it. They looked for this unga of 100 shillings, they did not find. They waited for the price of things to come down, it did not come down, right? Because it was a political decision. So, did you, John, expect me seriously to be elected president? And I know what is right, to continue to do what is wrong. What would that do? In a year, we were going to spend 300 billion shillings on subsidy that benefits nobody. It would have been the most reckless thing to do. But just to respond to your issue of inflation, yes. In October, inflation went actually not 9.5, it went to 9.6, right? But because of the interventions we have made, inflation is now at 9.1. It's on its way down because we are making the right decisions. It will not be sorted out in a week or two or 1 month. We got ourselves here because of 3 years of making the wrong decisions. But I am promising the country that within the next 1 year, we will have pulled the country from here. We will have set ourselves on the trajectory of making sure that we never again buy unga at 240. Thankfully, we have put the brakes on the continued increase of prices of unga and all the other food products. At least unga now is averaging around 190 shillings from 230. The price of cooking oil has come down. So we are beginning to see the journey to sanity. And it is my intention, not just to promote the production we are doing at the moment, but also to make sure that the gap that exists between what the farmers are producing and before the next harvest is that we're going to import maize and some foodstuffs, about 10 million bags between the month of February and June, to make sure that we keep the tabs on the prices of basic food commodities not going up. We are also working full steam, and you saw me yesterday in Galana. Many people believe Galana was a wrong thing or it failed. Galana did not fail. It was made to fail, right? And I want to promise you, John and your team here and Kenyans, speaking to them directly, that we are going to make Galana work. And it's going to work beginning this February. We are going to plant maize in the first 10,000 acres. And we already have the mechanism to do it. In another 8 months, we are going to do the next 10,000 acres. And in the next 2 months, 3 months, I will be in Galana to launch the construction of the dam that will make it possible for the next 300,000 acres. It is possible for us to produce 10 million bags from Galana to seal the gap that we are currently going to import, just by making sure that it works. And for your information, it is going to work. And just to show you that Galana Gulalu was sabotaged, go to the Ministry of Lands. The fellows who sabotaged it had actually subdivided it into little pieces of land.
Mr. President, just
4 acres.
Just for clarity.
I don't know what, you know?
Just for clarity.
Let me ask you, do you know who was running the government of Kenya?
Yeah.
Yes.
So why are you asking the obvious?
We don't know. You're the president. You should tell us.
And the
But
vice
you are,
president.
and you were the deputy president.
but you are Kenyans.
Yes.
You know, when I was shown the door and I was operating from the streets as deputy president, there were people who were running this administration.
Mm-hmm. So you said,
Unfortunately, but for the good news for the people of Kenya, it will not happen. I have cancelled the parceling of that land. I have stopped it, and it will not happen, because subdividing Galana into 2 acres, 3 acres is actually going to send people who are going to require food relief to even live there. When we can actually, let me ask you, good people, Galana can feed 3-4 million Kenyans. Why do you want to go and settle 10,000 people? How will, even if you do maths upside down, how does 4 million people compare with 10,000?
Mr. President, this question obviously asks you, and you've consistently said the subsidies were there to line the pockets of a few people. I think it is bestowed on you and to Kenyans to draw a line and say, who are these few people? Say 300 billion a year, for instance, for the last 3 years. That's 900 billion. Is there responsibility?
So what are you saying? I didn't understand.
Is there responsibility? Are those people who you're blaming them, are they going to take responsibility?
The subsidies did not take 3 years. The subsidies were introduced. The Unga one was it failed miserably.
So how much money did we lose?
Yeah, we didn't lose. We paid people 8 billion shillings, but I don't know. They are saying they supplied the maize, but nobody saw the 100 shilling maize, right? If you ask Kenya Power, they are supposed to have been paid 26 billion. I asked the MD of Kenya Power, so how much money were you paid? Apart from the money that Treasury gave, which is 4 billion shillings, and it was given in July. No other money was given to them. So what did Kenya Power do? It just went into debt. So you are financing a subsidy using debt. What kind of logic is that?
Mr. President, that is injustice, that is impunity, that is corruption. What then will your government do to make sure that they get to the bottom of this? Or do we just let it go?
Let me tell you, because nobody, like for example, the Unga subsidy. When I came into office as audit, I think already 4 billion shillings had been paid. I said, before we pay the next 4 billion, we have to audit. So you're telling us you supplied this maize. Who to? Where was it supplied? That's number one. Number two, when I asked Kenya Power whether they were paid this 26 billion, nobody paid them. So what did they do? They didn't charge the customers, so they went into more debt. That's why today I have to look for money to get Kenya Power out of the mess that was that they were put in by subsidies. So these are political decisions that are made for political expediency. You know, I am not here to make political decisions because we cannot get Kenya where we all want. We have to make some of the difficult decisions. Many people are wondering, why did I cancel the subsidies? It looks nice to talk about subsidies, but you know, you have to interrogate. Is it correct? Popular. But is it right? It is not right.
Mr. President, what do you tell a Kenyan who is watching you tonight, feeling the pinch of that pain, and knowing that there was subsidy before, and they cannot afford that unga now? What do you tell them? How long do they have to wait?
My good friend, even with the subsidy, how many Kenyans got the 100 shilling unga? How many? You know, nothing really changed for millions of Kenyans. So it is not correct for you to say they were having subsidy help them to get anything. Subsidy helped a few people. It never helped the consumer.
Right, but the cost of living,
the most important thing that has happened is that I have stopped the hemorrhage of public funds. Yeah? We are not going to go into more debt. And let me tell you, good people, the one thing that I had to do, which was the most important thing to do, is to put the brakes on appetite for debt. And even what we had agreed, or what the former government had agreed with the World Bank, to borrow an extra 900 billion to cover the gap that existed in the budget. I have come, interrogated the 900 billion and said, please, good people, we are going to net off 300 billion. We are actually going to borrow 300 billion less because it is the right thing to do. We cannot continue to run our economy on the foundation of debt. We are going to bankrupt this country.
What happens to the deficit?
And that is why I have, you will see in the supplementary budget, we have cut down by 300 billion, the borrowing. And what have I done? I have started the trajectory to build our own revenue. You know, three things. Everybody is going to pay debt. It's going to pay tax, right? Starting with William Ruto. Everybody is going to pay tax. There will be no waiver for nobody, right? You saw people waiving, you know, the taxes for their businesses, you know. You buy this bank, you sell that bank, you waive taxes. You know, it's not going to happen under my administration. Everybody's going to pay debt. And number three.
Who did that, for the record?
Number three, you go find out. Number three, we are installing a new tax system. Because at the moment, we've been collecting 60% of VAT, for example. Collectible VAT. Almost 40% we are not collecting because it goes here, it pilferages there, it goes this way. The system we are now installing is going to drive the collection of VAT to between 90 and 97%.
A follow-up on that.
That should be able to collect an extra 200 to 300 billion. In fact, the target I have given to KRA is that by June this year, we should be able to collect an extra 500 billion by June this year.
How is that going to happen, Mr. President? Because when it comes to increasing the tax base and cutting spending on borrowing, then the country's business environment must be different. Something must change in the country's business environment. What are the administration's plans to improve the ease of doing business, which essentially will see a broadening of the country's tax base?
Precisely. That's what I'm telling you, my good sister Linda. I am telling you...
Michelle,
Michelle, sorry. Michelle. That's why I'm telling you, everybody first must pay tax. Yeah, let's begin there. This is not the animal farm where some animals are more equal than others. This is Kenya. We are all equal. Everybody pays their portion of the tax. And number two, we are going to make sure that more people come into the space where they work with government to pay tax. What am I doing about it? We are going to digitize all government services in the next 6 months. Yeah, e-citizen, which we had started in, we had started, ran into headwinds, and nobody wanted to sort it out. I came in, I called the e-citizen guys. We have sorted out the e-citizen shenanigans, and in the next 6 months, every government service will be available online, digitally. And with it, every government service where tax is payable is going to be collectible online. I am not going to wait for anybody to say, okay, I will file a return at the end of the month. There will be nothing like that. We will be paying tax as we spend our money, or as we do our business. That way, I can be able to broaden the tax base. I can be able to seal the leakages in the whole system, and watch this space. I intend to collect an extra 1 trillion shillings in the next 24 months, and double our current collection by 2027, to make sure that we begin to drive the country from the cliff of debt back to sanity. And that's how we're going to take this forward.
Mr. President, now that you have engaged us on public debt, I have two questions. The first question is, out of our collection currently, about 65% goes to the payment of debt. Now, the dollar, when the shilling falls, that also increases our debt by about 30 billion shillings. What is your plan to ensure you get us out of this public debt crisis?
One bullet. We collect every collectible revenue in Kenya, and everybody pays their piece, right? How will we sort this out? I have told you, I have given you because there is no miracle required. There is no magic required. It's just basic numbers. And it's not even difficult numbers of algorithm and what have you. It's just plus and minus, right? We are collecting 2 trillion. We are spending 1.4 trillion to pay debt. We're remaining with how much? 600 million, right? Our salaries alone is 700 billion Kenya shillings. So we have to borrow money to give to the counties. We have to borrow money to do operation and maintenance. We have to borrow. It cannot work like that, my friend. So what do we have to do?
Yes.
We need to make our numbers add up. So first thing, we drive our revenue, to make sure that, and cut down on our spending. So I am doing two things. I am cutting down on our spending. It was projected that our deficit would be 6.6. I have forced it to come to 5.8. Next year, my projection with my team is that we want to bring the fiscal deficit to 4.4%, so that we progressively reduce debt, progressively push our own resources, and use our own resources to run our own our development. Because if we continue in this trajectory, Ken, if we continued in this trajectory of borrowing money left, right, and center, we will drive the country into bankruptcy.
Your country, Mr. President, is classified by IMF as a high-risk, debt-distressed country, together with the countries like Ghana, Malawi, Zambia, and the rest. Now, I'll give you an example of just two countries. The GDP per capita for Ghana is $2,445.29 US. For Kenya, it's a little lower with about 400, which is about 2,006 US dollars. Now, my question is, Ghana has defaulted. Do you see your country, Kenya, defaulting? And if your country, I'll just give a context, if your country, Kenya, defaults, What will we do? Increasingly, your government has been seen to be facing the West more than the East. You'll have to go renegotiate with China. Now, if this happens, what is your plan? Because Ghana has defaulted. We are categorized in the same frame.
First, Ken, you're telling me your country. So which is your country? I thought it was our country.
You're in charge.
I'm in charge, but it's our country. It is our country.
Yes.
So this country of ours, which you and me have equal stakes, right? We only have different jobs. Will not default. That one I want to give you. We are not in that position that we are going to default as a country. We will not. And the people of Kenya can be assured that our country will not default on our obligations. That is number one. And the reason why we will not default is because we have already applied brakes on any more borrowing. Our borrowing is going to be limited to only what we must borrow, right? Number two is because we are beginning the journey to grow our own savings and to grow our own revenues, yeah? By making sure that we have a plan on how to expand our tax base, by making sure that we digitize all government services and bring everybody into the net who is supposed to pay, making sure that the tax system is also friendly, making sure that our plan on saving is accelerated, as you have seen. If you fund a loan, saved in 1 month 600 million Kenyan shillings. Once we scale up, you will see the kind of saving that we're going to do. Once we are finished with NSSF and all the other savings, and we are getting more Kenyans to do business, we will be in a position to expand our tax base. Okay. Apart from the personal loans we are giving on Hustler Fund, scale it up to the loans to the SACCOs, to the chamas, to the other categories, and make sure that more people are engaged in enterprise. Okay. And to ensure that we expand our tax base, we grow our revenues, and we finance our development not by debt, not by borrowing, but by making sure that we use our own resources. And finally, on the issue of facing west, east, south, you know, we have the choosing friends. This is not a this versus that, you know. The more friends you have, it's like you have more assets. The more enemies you have, it's like you have more liabilities, you know. Who tells you we cannot be friends with China and be friends with America? Why? China and America are doing business. Who are we not to do business with everybody, you know? So you should be able to separate politics, you know, disagreements, you know, political positions with interests. We have interests as a nation. And if our interests work with China, we work with China. If our interests dictate that we must work with the West, we work with the West. You know, it is a mutually beneficial relationship. Okay. I am very happy that we have a good relationship with the East. I am also very happy that we are now developing a good relationship with the West.
Mr. President, would you look at that camera and admit to Kenyans that SGR was a haste? Mombasa, Nairobi was a haste.
What do you mean was a haste?
It's been now documented that it's theft of public funds, funding that SGR.
No, I cannot, you know, I cannot say what is not absolutely factual, you know. We developed the SGR. The only problem that SGR ran into is it ran into capture by a few people, so that it was not allowed to do what it was supposed to do. right? So we are, and by the way, it is in my plan to make sure that SGR pays for itself, because it is possible.
Mr. President, you mentioned something, because you're now focusing on the pre-election pledges that you've been implementing, and you started with the Hustler Fund. And I listened to you in the Swahili episode, and you spoke about some 20 billion shillings has been borrowed so far. The figures we have from the ministry so far, as of today, are 12.8. I don't know how you account for that difference. But also, secondly, we know that the regulations that were prepared by the National Treasury and approved by Parliament say that, yes, money shall be appropriated by the House, but also there shall be a board to manage it. There shall be a secretariat to manage it. Who is managing the Hustlers Fund today?
On the figures, I have so many figures, by virtue of my position. I deal with quite a host of figures. You are correct that the amount that we have lent is not 21 billion. It is 12.9 billion as of this evening, right? I went and checked the numbers because my minister actually sent me a text and said, this is, the 21 I mentioned were the number of transactions. It's actually 21 million transactions that have taken place. All the other numbers are right that I mentioned. So there is no discrepancy between my numbers and the others. Let's leave that there. Your other question was on who is managing the Hustler Fund. I decided that we are going to use the benefit of technology to run this fund. And that is why this fund is successful. If we had gone the route of forming a committee in every village, and a committee in every constituency, and another committee in every... First, we would not even have formed the committees. Forget about disburse the money, right? I mean, technology works, my friend.
Which is true.
So what we have done is we have engineered. We already have the K-Nest, which is approved by the RBA to manage the component of savings, which is already in place. We have a board, that originally was part of K-Nest, which is now the board we are adopting to run the Hustler Fund. And the secretariat is actually a consortium that we established between the government and our national mobile operators.
But Mr.
And
President,
we have a complete secretariat, including even a call center that makes sure that citizens can...
And that is good, Mr. President. Allow me to interject you. But regulations of your own government say that a board shall be constituted. In fact, the board chair is to be appointed by you, the President.
Yes.
The secretariat shall be appointed. The administrator will be appointed by that board. Now, you're using the board of K-Nest. How do you explain...
K-Nest, actually, the Hustler Fund is a product of K-Nest. That's how we developed it, And you see, Sam, while I agree with you that processes are very good, and we should do processes, but I think results are better. Is the Hustler Fund working? Have we disbursed money? Are real Kenyans today beneficiaries? Is that agenda moving forward? That the processes are important. The results are also much more important. My submission to the people of Kenya is that for the first time, we have a product that doesn't require layers and layers and layers of bureaucracy, but a product that is working. The fact that a Kenyan somewhere, he doesn't know William Ruto. He may not even know his MCA. He may not even be known by the Mzee wa Mitaa. But on his phone, somehow, he has gotten a government service and he has received 2,000 shillings and he is running his show. I think that's the best news ever.
Mr. President, shouldn't that be the board reason? Hustler Fund is such a far-reaching economic revolution, using your words. Shouldn't that be the board reason why it should be anchored in law? It should be so that it's not, as you say, a William Ruto product?
Let me tell you, my good brother, Mr. Smart. Hustler Fund is anchored in law. Yeah? As I answered earlier, all the resources that are being used in Hustler Fund are public resources. We went through the public participation processes, we went through Parliament, we have established it, we went all the way to getting the license from the RBA to ensure that we are in compliance with the law and to make sure that every requirement of law has been satisfied before we apply public resources. And I want to give you my assurance that the success of the Hustler Fund is the benefit we gain from digitization and technology. I was very impressed when our mobile operators were so patriotic that they were willing to be part of this product, even if it, to some extent, undermined some of their own products. But they saw the national good. They say, yes, we are making money here. But if we can have a government-sponsored program that reduces the interest rate from 300% to 8%, from 1% per day to 0.02% per day, let us support this program.
But how inclusive is the program, Mr. President, with the digitization and technology? We're speaking of more than 40 million Kenyans. In the first week of the Hustler Fund, more than 50% of those who borrowed were from Nairobi County. How inclusive nationally is the Hustler Fund?
For your information, your statistics are not right. You should look at the current spread of Hustler Fund. It is national. In fact, every county, the variation is actually it is only on population. The population of a county, the more the people who have borrowed. The smaller the population of a county, it is just commensurate. And again, for your information, even though you may think that maybe there are some people, because of technology, they cannot be reached, Michelle, you will be very surprised because you can access Hustler Fund even on Mulikamuizi, you know? So long as you have a Mulikamuizi, you are in business. And you don't have to know nobody. You don't have to know anybody. Even your neighbor is not important. But they are only, the committee, as I said, the committee is 3 people, is 3. Yourself, your phone, and technology. Finished.
In case, because technology fails, Mr. President, in case Hustler Fund 2 years to come fails and there's something that goes wrong, who takes responsibility?
William Ruto takes responsibility.
Okay. Beyond that, Mr. President.
Before we take a break, because there are Kenyans watching you tonight.
Okay.
Pesa ya wazee, Mr. President, a very minute, because there are people who are asking, pesa ya wazee iko wapi?
Pesa ya wazee is on. You know, contrary to stories being peddled around, you know, the challenges that we have faced with pesa ya wazee, the challenges we have faced with all the things that we are doing is because we do not have adequate public resources. You know, the roads stalled 1.5 years ago because there was no money to pay for them. You know, we must just appreciate that our economy was not doing well, and somebody needed to come and bring back our economy. And that's exactly what I am doing, and I want to promise the people of Kenya, I will sort out this economy and make sure that it serves us for now and for the future.
We need to take a short break, but the Kenyans were asking that as we're taking a break from the Swahili episode, you are not wearing a ring. Now you have one.
Sam, you are the only person who is also wearing a ring here. This one, it has no ring. This one has no...
Unfortunately, information...
what's the ring? So anyway, you know, I saw that, you know, in a hurry to come here, you know, these characters, I was having some meetings in the office, and then they came and told me, go dress up, you know. So in the process of all that, I forgot my ring, and it's very interesting. it became a subject of discussion. I thought we were having a very serious conversation here about it. But anyway, let me tell you the story of the river now that you have asked.
Yes.
You know, when Rachel and I got married, we went to that fellow called Nagin Patni, I think is
Yes.
there up on River Road. So we bought rings there. So it was then 700 shillings. So of course it got tired along the way. So ikavunjika. So Rachel took so long to go and get a replacement. So when she got a replacement,
A replacement for you?
Yeah, of course, because she's very...
Well, I thought it's men who buy the ring. But anyway, we're taking a short break here. We're speaking to President William Ruto on this day, the very first conversation since he became president. We'll be back shortly with more topics. And Mr. President, thank you for staying with us. You didn't leave us. It's a good thing for a host. But let's talk about a very important conversation, that is education. On 23rd of January, Kenyans are supposed to take back their children, those who are parents, back to school. What do you think? Because junior secondary, grade 7, reports back to their primary schools. When you're thinking about this, what do you envision will be the sort of conversation and activities in that school where you have now primary schools, kids or children between grade 1 and 6. You have a junior secondary learner. You also have a standard 8 learner. Yet the teachers, yes, there's a process to employ, but so far no one is ready to teach that grade 7 as of now.
First, give you the background. As I said earlier, you know, education is one of the most precious things that any nation, you know, anywhere, places a premium on. And it is especially for Kenya, because the biggest resource that we have as a country is our human capital. Today, our human capital earns us more money than all the other tea, coffee, our remittances from Kenyans who work 400 billion plus every year. So it tells you the importance of our human capital, number one. Number two, as you've said correctly, every parent, myself included, you think about the education of your child. And therefore, it's a very emotional, it's a very important issue. So the change, the transition to CBC, from where I sit, is a correct transition. There could have been some missteps. Maybe it was, maybe we should have taken an extra 1 or 2 years to make sure that we get the teachers on board, all the other facilities on board. But that's now water under the bridge. That's why it was also a conversation in this election. And I took the decision that for us to get professional advice, let us put together a presidential working party of educationists and other stakeholders. And they have done a good job. They've talked to teachers, they've talked to parents, they've talked to other stakeholders, people who run schools and everybody else, and it was unanimous. 86% of 20,000 people that were engaged said they wanted the junior secondary to be near the parents, because many of these children are still young. Their parents need to look after them, to make sure that they are fine. And also, it reduces on the cost of education. You know, if you have to take your child to a school, you know, far away, maybe in a boarding school, it costs more. So I think the unanimous decision was made, and I believe that that is the correct decision. We also agreed that that transition is going to happen for all our children, you know, that are in grade 6. They will all transit to, because we still insist on the 100% transition. Mm-hmm. They will move to junior secondary. And as government, we took the decision that we are going to hire an extra 30,000 teachers, the largest ever, to make sure that that transition is not only smooth. And next year, we're going to hire another 30,000 teachers, just because of budgetary reasons, to make sure that our education is seamless. That presidential working party, I also tasked them, not just to look at CBC, but to look at our TVET institutions, to look at our university institutions, the whole education sector, because that is the sector that makes Kenya what it is, right? So apart from the transition and the CBC, the which has been my pet project, and I pushed it ever since I was Minister for Higher Education, slowed down the last 4 years because of politics, you know. But now, we're going to hire another 2,000 tutors this January to make sure that we are up to date with the skills and competencies that are being taught in our TVET institutions, especially those focusing on engineering, because that's the direction we are going.
All right, before we get to TVET, Mr. President, let me take you back to the Presidential Working Party on Education Reform. They are recommending that grade 7, 8, and 9 be domiciled within the primary school setup. Now, you mentioned that the Teacher Service Commission has advertised 30,000 positions. And these include interns and those permanent and pensionable as well. But does this address the gap? Because this would mean then that we need more teachers to address the within primary school than we may need to address the transition to secondary schools. Do these 30,000 teachers fit to address this transition to both primary and secondary school?
Absolutely. In fact, the Teacher Service Commission are the professionals. We give them the latitude to decide how many of the teachers will help in the transition to junior secondary, how many of the teachers will assist in the continuing secondary education, and how many of them will go to primary. So that is the decision of professionals, and it is the expertise that we have in the Teacher Service Commission is able to tell us where the numbers are. Of course, we could do with a lot more teachers, and that is why I'm saying phase 1, we're going to hire 30,000. Next year, we're going to hire, and progressively, as we committed ourselves in our manifesto, by year 5, we will have hired 110,000 additional teachers.
A very important transition.
To make sure that that whole transition metrics goes on.
Mr. President, a very important transition bit for the Class 7. And of course, the report on ground is that then the government will be hiring teachers, like one teacher for every Class 7 class. Of course, this is a big transition. How then will they manage 14 subjects for these very students, understanding very well that specialization angle?
Of course, the resources will be shared, between the secondary schools that exist at the moment. We are also going to work with, we have teachers who have already graduated to degree level who are teaching in the primary. We are going to identify those teachers to come and support the junior secondary transition. So we have sat down for long hours with TSC. They have mapped out how many teachers are diploma teachers who are teaching in primary, how many are graduate teachers who are teaching in primary, who can now support the junior secondary, how many can we transition this way, that way, and what can we do to make sure that we leverage on the employment that's going to happen next year. So all that is mapped out because it is important for us to provide a transition for all our children and ground our education properly. And as I speak to that point, allow me just to speak about our university education. Part of what we have informed the Presidential Working Party on education reform is to make sure that they give us the correct recommendation, because our position is that we should be able to create a merger between the TVET funding board, the university funding board, the higher education loans board, because all these boards are putting students in this university, they are putting students in that college. This one is organizing bursary, and nobody is talking to nobody. We need a system that ensures that we are taking so many students to college X. That's why we are giving them so much money, and that's why we are allocating so much bursary, so that our education is grounded on sound economics. As we talk now, most of our universities are bankrupt. Egerton University, one of our universities, the CEO has been taken to court, is almost in jail. And the reason is we are giving between 52 and 55% of the requirements of our universities. It is time we sat down and assigned all our universities the students that we have the capacity to fund and to give bursary.
All right, still on junior.
Otherwise, if we continue this way, we are going to lower the education of our universities, and it's going to affect our human capital development, and that we don't want to do.
Still on junior secondary, Mr. President, what should parents expect in supporting their students in junior secondary? As we speak right now, we have parents across the country who are in limbo because their schools their children are in do not have facilities, adequate facilities for them to transition to grade 7. Now, these parents will be staring at perhaps transferring their children to different schools, which again is a cost they did not anticipate. How will the government work about this to ensure that every child remains in school?
Michelle, I don't think a parent will be advised to transfer their children to any other school. Because number one, we do not have a shortage of classrooms. Yeah? We have, in every primary school, we have an extra classroom for grade 7 to go to. That's number one. We are sorting out the teachers. We are sorting out the curriculum. That's all in place. The only thing that is going to be pending, and we intend to have a conversation with our members of parliament, is to build for them within 1 year a laboratory. Yeah? In fact, it is possible to convert some of the extra classrooms that were already built into laboratories. And it is possible for schools that share the same compound, the secondary schools, for the grade 7 to carry out their laboratory work in the secondary school. So we have all manner of permutations to make sure that we sort out this transition. I am not saying it is going to be, I'm not saying it's an easy thing, but I want to promise you it's doable. We have all hands on deck. Everybody is working seamlessly, and I want to thank members of parliament. They are very keen to support this transition with their allocation of CDF.
Mr. Transition to the next topic. On that education matter, you're talking about bringing together the University Fund, TVET Fund, and HELB. According to the current budget, the University Fund has been allocated 91.2 billion shillings, or rather, University Education, sorry. HELB, 15.8 billion shillings. TVET, capitation, 5.2 billion shillings. And I'm just wondering, even if you put the body that is financing students together with the body that is financing these institutions, at the end of the day, it's a question of resources. So how does that resolve if your government cannot allocate revenue?
Already, we are pushing the resources that are available for loans board, to 21 billion. Yeah, that will be reflected shortly. We are also working with the investor, and that's why I made it a subject of the Presidential Working Party, because we need some candid talk and firm decisions on how many students should we admit, yeah? How many students can we fund? And how much money can the bursary we have, how many students can the bursary we have support? So that we don't send students to a college or a university and there is no commensurate financing to support their education. It is just basic logic. So this is the conversation that we need to have. And in my opinion, it should be possible as you place a student, you must also know, is there funding for the education of that child? And is there supporting bursary to make sure that that child finishes that?
But we have situations, Mr. President, where universities like Mount Kenya University will have more students in the School of Medicine than the University of Nairobi. What's your take on HELB supporting students in private universities more than those in public universities?
That's the conversation we're going to have.
Ultimately, Mr. President.
That's the conversation we are going to have, because we need to interrogate, how feasible is it for government to support so many students with little money instead of supporting the number of students that they can with adequate resources to make sure that they get the correct training. So that's the conversation we're going to have. And we're going to have it with public universities, and we are going to have that conversation even with the private universities. And possibly we could, where we are not able to finance, we have to be honest with ourselves. Let me give you a practical situation, Michelle. We have students in academies. They pay 100,000, 200,000 a term, right? All through, from standard 1 to Form 4. But when they go to university, we want to tell them we can pay for all of them. Why? If a parent is able to pay for their child in primary and in secondary, why don't we allow them to pay for their child in university? So that we support the children of the people who cannot afford. Why, for example, would my daughter or son of William Ruto be given bursary in the university when William Ruto can afford? Or for that matter, Ken Michungu here, or James Matt. I'm sure that you guys can. So we really have to be honest.
Mr. President,
we really have to allow for me to ask this question.
We really have to be honest with that. And I'm sorry if I say.
No, that's an interesting conversation.
We really have to be honest with ourselves.
Right.
That let those who can afford pay.
Okay.
We're positive.
Let those who cannot afford, let us think of how do we support them, rather than pretending that we are able to support all the children, even when we are not in the position to.
Mr. President, can Michungu allow me to come first?
Okay.
Are you telling me Michungu wewe huwezi kulipia mtoto wako kwa university? Wewe sasa hii mtoto wako wako kwa nini kwa academy alafu unasema nini?
All right. Okay, Mr. President, we are positive on getting it right.
Yes.
Ultimately, it's about making sure that we have students that are well-baked for the job market.
Absolutely.
For, the world out there. We have lots of skills today. We have lots of experience, but not fully utilized. What are you doing to make sure that then, after all said and done, these skills, this experience will be utilized for economic growth?
3 things. Number one, we have to drive our industrialization and manufacturing value addition agro-processing agenda. It is a big part of our plan. And that is why I have set the Ministry for Investment, Industry, and manufacturing, you know. The Ministry of Investment, Trade, and Industry. Because, and I have put there an investment banker called Moses Kuria. Moses Kuria, when he's not a politician, is a very serious professional.
Oh, yeah?
Right? And I have confidence that him and his team of PSS, I have given him 3 PSS, very serious people, they will deliver on that agenda. We want to reverse the slide back in our manufacturing. You know, our manufacturing has gone down as a percentage of GDP from 9% to 7%. We have agreed with the ministry, we have agreed with the Kenya Association of Manufacturers, we have agreed with KEPSA, we have agreed with everybody that we are going to do a 20 by 30. We are saying by 2030, manufacturing should be contributing 20% to our GDP. That's the plan we have. That's how we are going to create the jobs. You're saying that we have so many skills. That is why I have also moved forward the completion of the Dongokundu, for example, a special economic zone where we are estimating to hire maybe 30, 40, 50,000 people. From being completed in 2028, I have pushed our development partners, JICA and all that group, to make sure that it is ready by 2025. That is why I am pushing the industrial city in Naivasha. Already, we are working with our textile industries. We are working with our leather product industry. You may want to know, Linda, that we are wasting close to 50% of all our hides and skins being eaten by dogs, being buried. When we are buying shoes, we are buying leather products that we should be producing using our own labor, using our own raw material from our own animals. We slaughter 3 million livestock every year. We are the 3rd largest livestock holder as a country in Africa. We should be able to take advantage of the raw material that we have, run our industries, and make sure. And I have given KPIs. And that is the conversation, by the way, we are going now to synchronize tomorrow with my cabinet. We're going to have 3 days of sitting down on how to deliver on the plan, ministry by ministry, priority by priority, with the timelines, with costs, to make sure that we don't disappoint the people of Kenya. And finally, I have told you about diaspora, for example.
Right.
You know, that is a resource that we can use. Kenyans are outstanding everywhere they go, whether it is in the tourism industry, whether it is in the hospitality industry, whether it is in whatever other industry, they stand out globally. That's why I'm saying we have a resource. You know, I intend, just 1 minute, Sam. I intend to drive the agenda to make sure that we leverage the many Kenyans who have skills, as Linda has said. We get them working everywhere in the world. That's why I've set up the Pora, and I have put there a PS. And I have told her she has no other business. She must get Kenyans working everywhere. And every Kenyan who is working everywhere must be serviced by the government of Kenya. I intend to raise, by God's grace, the 400 billion to $1 trillion. Then we will be talking business. So we will be creating jobs locally, and we will be driving our jobs agenda internationally.
Okay, Mr. President, let's make progress and talk about the security situation in the country. And recently we had some sentiments from the new Inspector General that you appointed. He was talking about the police and defending themselves. We also had the Deputy President, Rigathi Gachagua, saying that the police must protect themselves, do not provoke them. And this is coming at a time that it's just over 100 days that you said that there will be no extrajudicial killings in this country. So when IPOA comes and complains, then they're called busybodies by officers that you've appointed. How do you explain that? And what is the agenda of the government moving forward to ensure that there will be no such kind of activities?
Let me repeat, for the avoidance of doubt, there will be no extrajudicial killings in the government of Kenya under my administration. Yeah? That is a chapter we must close and weld and bolt and put it behind us. The police, I have sat down with the command of the police from the IG downwards, and we have agreed that they will operate within the law. Operating within the law includes defending themselves. Yeah? They are licensed to use firearms to deal with criminals, but to also defend themselves. Because if they don't defend themselves, they won't even be there to sort out the criminals. So let us not, I don't think the Deputy President or indeed the IG said that they want to continue with extrajudicial killing. That is not our policy, and we are all aligned as government. I have, as an administration, I have said we are going to respect and we are going to work with all institutions that makes sure that government works in the manner in which that's supposed to work, respecting the rule of law constitutionally. So the Independent Police Oversight Authority has our support. We are going to fund them. We are going to support them. And already, I have told them that they must begin to give us a program on the investigation of how we ended up with close to 200 Kenyans being killed and dumped in rivers. They must come. They must come to the country and tell us, right? And so whenever you find this institution maybe saying something contrary with another institution, that's the beauty of democracy. That's the system of checks and balances. That's why the opposition, sometimes they don't agree with me or they don't agree with government, but that does not mean that we have war, you know? It is this is how the system is meant to work. Every institution is supposed to check the other institution.
Mr. President,
and to make sure that everybody has a constitutional mandate. Everybody must operate within their constitution. If the constitutional mandate of IPOA is to make sure that there are no excesses in the police, that is their duty, and they must carry out that duty.
Mr. President, I'm here wondering, you have been a subject of harassment by police officers and some of your allies too. And police officers claimed they were following or operating within the law. When you say that in defending themselves, they're operating within the law, it appears like there's a way police understand the law and how Kenyans understand it. To you is, give a clearer direction when you say that they can defend themselves within the law, because sometimes operating within the law has different meanings.
The police not can, they must defend themselves. That's the law, you know. They must defend themselves. They cannot put themselves at risk, you know, and be able to continue being a police force that helps us sort out our security. But, yes, I have been a subject of harassment by the police. But you heard me. I spoke clearly, with clarity, and I told the IG and all the commanders who came here from every county that they have no business carrying out political orders. Let them go and read the Constitution and read the law, you know? And I have told them there is no government person or opposition person. We are all taxpayers. They must protect all Kenyans the way they protect the president, yeah? Whether they voted for the opposition or they voted for the government party, that's not the place of the police to go and choose and pick. All Kenyans, irrespective of how they voted, are taxpayers. They are entitled by right to protection under the law by our security agencies. And they have it very clear. I have told them, I have called the provincial administration, the national government administration officers, from the regional commissioner to the county commissioner, and I have told them it is not in their place to play politics. Yeah?
His Excellency, are you aware?
They must respect every elected leader, whether they are elected, and work with every elected leader, whether they are elected on the government side or on the opposition side. An elected leader is an elected leader. And I have told them to support government activity, government programs. That is their business, to make sure their IDs are issued, all the other government services are delivered in all areas, irrespective of who voted in which place. I have also told them they must support government, county government functions and programs. Because a government is a government, whether it is run by a person in the opposition party or a person in the governing party, it is a government at that level. And the provincial administration at that level must support government activity, where national and county, because that is how we are going to grow Kenya. Government functions, government programs that support the people of Kenya must be supported by all government people.
Mr. President, are you aware that we have about 750,000 pistols and rifles in private hands, of course, more than the police and military combined? And of course, this is according to a survey, a Geneva-based small arms survey. And the biggest worry, and of course what it is that experts then dictate, is that sheer volume of guns is a national security concern. If everybody were to go out and protect themselves, the police within the law, the people, Kenyans who seem to have lost faith in the aspect of security, that's why they'll go around, in search of guns and all that. Some of them unlicensed. What would it mean?
For your information, Linda, we have, the reason why we have a government is so that we can delegate some of the functions to some people. Yeah. Otherwise, if it becomes everybody for himself, then we stop being a nation and we stop being a state, and we just become something else, right? So, small arms is a big challenge, correctly, not in Kenya, in our region, and the use of proliferation of illegal firearms in the wrong hands is part of the challenge we are facing with even the cattle rustlers, the terrorists, and all these other criminal. And that is why I said earlier in the Kiswahili interview that we have purposed ourselves. And the CS, Professor Kindiki, his peers, Mr. Omolo, are properly guided on what we should do as government to rein in on these runaway crooks and ensure that we deal with them decisively. We have made huge strides. As I told you, I was in Baringo in December, and they were saying for the last 7 months we have slept, But let me also tell you that it is not over until it is over. So we will keep upping our game. There is need for us to upgrade some of the equipments we are using. There is need to enhance our mobility for our security forces. It boils down to the budget, And that is why I am really focused on sorting out the economy, because that way we will have the resources to sort out our roads, to sort out our security, and to sort out the things that are dear.
CS Kindiki Kithure says, and I quote, "We cannot afford to have a country where citizens live in constant fear, and we will not spare any effort, even if it means using the KDF. The Constitution dictates that the KDF are then released only as a last resort, and of course to restore peace, but with approval of the National Assembly. Article 241, 3C of the Constitution. Is the banditry menace as bad and severe such that the government would consider KDF?
It is serious, but it hasn't reached the threshold for us to go to Parliament to get KDF involved. We, however, are sharing information, from intelligence from all sides. We are sharing facilities and resources, and in some of the areas, we are making the decision that it's good to have security installations in some of these areas. Like, for example, in that whole North Rift, we're going to have some of the training facilities for our security agencies to cement government presence in some of those areas, and to make sure that whenever we need to deploy, we are not deploying from afar. So there will be, for example, a garrison being built up by the army in Lodwar. There will be another garrison that will be built in the Suguta Valley, to make sure that people feel, because security is also presence, real presence. So we are deploying, all manner of interventions and strategies to make sure that we manage our security.
Why don't we have a commission that, of course, a commission of inquiry that then would look into the extrajudicial killings, now that you mentioned the River Yala cases, and as well the involvement of IPOA and IMLUs and all that?
I already had a thorough meeting with IPOA, and we have agreed with them that it is not necessary for me to establish another task force when IPOA is there, and it is squarely within their mandate to tell us how did Kenyans end up being killed in this manner. And then it was business as usual. 30 bodies in Yala, there's 17 bodies in Garissa. I don't know how many bodies were. People, there was a container here at the Nairobi area. People were being slaughtered in a police station. How did we end up there? What kind of rogue, institution? And that is why I fired that Kinoti man, because, it's not right, good people.
Should there be responsibility more than just firing?
Of course, there will be responsibility.
He did not resign? You fired him?
We'll have another.
Okay, can we move this forward, Your Excellency? Since we're talking about security and talk about we have involved in DR Congo, we have interest in Somalia. What's our game plan? What exactly are we doing in this?
Smart. We, as a country, and maybe many Kenyans have been wondering, I have been to DRC, I have been to Uganda, I have been to Ethiopia, I was in South Sudan. Kenya has the largest economy in this region. And we have huge interest in the stability of this region. If this region is unstable, the biggest hit will be on our economy. Apart from that, we need to pacify this region so that the East African community can become a real market for our products. We have to be exported somewhere. We are looking at how do we grow our agriculture, agro-processing, our tea, our coffee. Where are we selling these products? We have to be interested in creating that market. And that market has to be in a peaceful place. So the reason why we have an interest as a nation, and I am actively, driving the stability of this region. I spoke on not yesterday, the day before yesterday, with the president of Sudan, and agreed with him that it is time to have an IGAD meeting for us to help our brothers and sisters in South Sudan. I spoke first with the president of Ethiopia on what we are doing as a country to support them with what is going on in Tigray. I am in constant conversation with the president of DRC. We have soldiers in DRC who are supporting the stabilization of that region. Uganda has soldiers, South Sudan has soldiers, Burundi has soldiers to pacify the region. So regional peace is a very important component of our economy.
But highly pegged on the political situation, the transitions that we witness, such has not been guaranteed to the people in terms of the electoral processes. Perhaps that's the reason why we celebrate our previous election. Just what will be done to make sure that even the political transitions then are properly done to guarantee us a regional peace?
Precisely, you know, you don't wait until you have a problem. You manage the situation ahead of time. So we are, whatever we are doing, whether it is in DRC, whether it is in the rest of the region, is to make sure that we are not taken by surprise by anything. Okay. You know, that we are mobilizing the region, and we are mobilizing international support also for our regional peace initiatives to make sure that Kenya contributes, you know, our bit in making sure that our region is stable, so that we can drive our economy, we can drive trade, we can drive investment, and we can support and build our economy.
Okay. One word on the Somali and, of course, our very own spillover.
Somalia is a very interesting situation, and we now have a leadership in Somalia that are working with us. And we're not only working with the president of Somalia, we are very happy that he's now consolidating even with the regional presidents in Somalia, so that we jointly attack the Al-Shabaab menace. We are very happy that at least we have some synergy and agreement. And we have taken the position that Somalia is a problem for Somalia as it is a problem for us. We cannot afford to look away. We cannot afford to walk away. We have to deal with that challenge, because if we don't, it will get to our doorsteps. We are lucky that we are keeping it at bay because of our intervention. Otherwise, it would ride all the way to you know where.
Mr. President, allow me to bring you back home and discuss another topic matter that is of importance.
Thank you.
As soon as you were elected president, there's a phenomenon that happened. The cases were collapsing left, right, and center. And these cases were of corruption in nature. And then other coincidence happened. Once you nominated some people, their cases were also withdrawn. I don't know what you feel about that, and what you have to say about that.
You know, when we talked about this, it looked like it was politics, you know. There was a huge push by the former administration, our friends, you know, to use the criminal justice system to run their politics, you know, and to fabricate, you know, cases against people merely because they didn't agree with your political side. It is in the public domain, my brother. Many governors, they were called, yeah, we are going to do this, we are going to start a file. You must be in Azimio. You must be in Azimio. You must. The reason why Azimio is definitely going to collapse is because it was built on quicksand. It was built on threats, blackmail, intimidation. So, to answer your question, is if the criminal justice system was used, today, the people who are supposed to give evidence against these people are saying, we can't give evidence because we were forced to say this and this and this as against this person, because it was we were forced to say so. Otherwise, our jobs were going to be on the line. So, I mean, so how do you support such a case? What are we supposed to say? Prosecute this person anyway, you know? So, and it is not for me, by the way. It's not for me to decide. There is no single case I have been asked. And for your information, I have told cabinet here. I have told my cabinet ministers. I have told the DPP. I have told the EACC director. I have told the DCI. Normally, before somebody is arrested who is working in government, the president is informed, you know, so that he can say something. I have told them, don't call me.
Okay.
Read the Constitution, read the law. If somebody needs to be prosecuted, whether he is minister, whether he is PS, whether he is whoever, apelekwe kotini.
I want to ask a follow-up
I
question.
don't want to be asked anything.
Ask...
And I have told the criminal justice system, I have told my sister, the Chief Justice and President of the Supreme Court, I will never call her to ask her for any favor on any case. The only conversation maybe I will ask her is, if a case is taking too long, is to ask her, please expedite. We are not telling you rule this way or rule this way.
Okay, Mr.
Expedite the case, rule in whatever way, so that we know whether we are going left or we are going right.
Mr. President, I would accept your premise that these cases were politically motivated, as you've said. Why isn't the DPP being asked to take foundational responsibility? Because that office took cases.
There are things I cannot speak on national television for other reasons. Yeah, but if I told you, for example, that already the DPP had been asked to hand in his resignation, you know, if he doesn't prosecute this case and this case and this case, you know, I mean, it was just an ugly situation, and I pray that Kenya never again goes to a place where the criminal justice system is used to manipulate politics.
So
we must never be there.
Yeah, I just want to ask this before I allow my colleagues to get into this. The question that you bring us now to the public is, we have to trust you that you're not using that same office for political expediency. That is what you are forcing us to do as a country, because we don't know the details.
And if there are signs that my office is being, it should be called out. That's why I am an open book. That's why I want a vibrant opposition. How we got here? Because of the handshake nonsense. My good brother, Bwana Smart. We got here because you get the opposition, which is supposed to hold the government to account, into some illegal, you know, cohabitation, or whatever it was called, you know, in the name of unity. What unity? You know, who says by having an opposition, we're not united? So, Kenyans voted in this election, right? There are as many people in Azimio as there are in Kenya Kwanza. So are you going to fold Kenyans that they caused disunity? The Kenyans voted.
Mr. President.
So it is now up to us leaders to figure out, this is the decision of Kenyans. Kenyans have said, you guys go and run government. They have said, you guys go and check government. Okay. Let us appropriate our responsibilities to end the case.
Yes, just as one final question on this, because we have to clear this up.
And let me say it looking at Kenyans.
Yeah. That's your camera.
The office of the president will not be used to use the criminal justice system against my opponents, any political purpose.
So the guarantee here...
And that I can sign off as William Ruto. It will not happen.
The guarantee here...
You know, I have enough people to help me do politics. You know, I have first myself. You know, I am a politician. I know what to do with politics, right? I don't need the police. I don't need the criminal justice system. You know, I can go and speak to Kenyans. The way I spoke to Kenyans, you know, persuade them, sell them my view. They have my track record. They know what they want. They know. And for your information, just allow me to say this.
Please.
Why? You find that the people of Kenya are really energized asking, you know, about things about my administration. It's because the people of Kenya know me and they know what I am capable of doing. And they judge me by very high standards. You know, if it was just another guy, They wouldn't mind if he did one or two things right, because they would say, okay, maybe this guy anyway has tried. But for me, I have to do things at another level, because they know what I'm capable of doing.
Yeah, I think the reasons that we're asking this, and to finish this sequence of questioning on the rule of law and accountability, is you actually put in the Kenya Kwanza Manifesto, and you said yourself that you'll establish within 30 days a quasi-judicial public inquiry to establish the extent of chronism, state capture, and such things. It's well past 30 days.
It is well past 30 days. When you come in the space where we came in, you know, the events of August 15th, were horrible, you know, because even the military institution had been roped into the scheme to sabotage the will of the people of Kenya because of that state capture menace, right? If Chebukati were to tell you the kind of hell, yeah, if the day the story of August 15th will be told in Kenya, you will know why I am delaying. Yeah? Because now I have to balance between the economy. You know, we are almost in the red. You know? Or do I swing this big thing that will drain our...
You'll establish the commission?
We'll establish the commission one day. But where we are as a country, I have to balance. You know, if you were to sit where I'm sitting, James, yeah, you would know why I have to go slow on certain things to allow the country to get out of the mess we are in, you know, without overloading it with so many, you know, so many other issues. Our plate is full, you know. So I have to kind of balance, you know. But I want to promise you that story.
Okay. Mr. President.
Yes, sir.
The political system that we are in, I mean, straight after your cabinet, what is the coincidence that I'll just mention three names? Your own deputy, Rigathi Gachagua, in fact, he's getting his 200 million shillings back. Aisha Jomo, your cabinet secretary, and Mithika Linturi, your cabinet secretary. These were cases, not one. Some had multiple cases in court. You want to tell us that you didn't have a hand in their clearance and the stalling of those cases?
Let me look again at the people of Kenya. William Ruto, the president of Kenya, had nothing to do with the cases that were dropped by the DPP against not just the three, any other case.
Okay.
And you can sit with my good brother Nurdin and ask him directly whether he has received a call from me to tell him, drop this case or drop that case.
Do you think it's just natural, Mr. President, that Rigathi Gachagua, who was just the other day a member of parliament, is now the deputy president, and his cases are falling? And obviously Kenyans will suspect there's a hand of the president and the government of the day.
Also Kenyans know that the criminal justice system was mobilized by the former administration to achieve political ends.
Okay.
Otherwise, for your information, with all these cases, how did we get ourselves elected? I mean, if all this was true, are you telling me 7 million plus Kenyans who said, no, these people are the right people to lead our country? Are you telling me our election was done at night?
How different
or in a dark place?
From
you
what
know,
you said.
What I am telling you is the people of Kenya can decipher between what is right and what is wrong.
Okay.
Right? What is right, what is wrong, and what is right. And if my good friend Rigathi Gachagua had anything to do with that matter, these people would have jailed him long time ago.
Okay. I'll talk about your deputy. But tell me, from what you have said, based on James Smart's questions, you support a very strong political system.
Yes,
you
I
want
do.
the opposition to sit on their side. You want to do your work. And if you do this, why is it that political parties are complaining that they haven't received their funding? If you really intended on supporting these political systems, why can the political parties, which your political party that brought you to office is one of the biggest, I believe it's also affected, but the other smaller parties are complaining first quarter, second quarter, third quarter of the funding in the offices. This is a sabotage. You don't want them to grow, yet you support a strong political system.
So it is sabotage, says who, and
The
by,
political parties that are
and by who?
Political parties that are
Yes.
saying they haven't received the first quarter,
Yes.
second quarter, and third quarter.
Have they also told you that even my own party has not received any funding?
You're the ruling party.
Yes, even the ruling party has not received any
You're the
funding.
ruling party. Perhaps you have funding. Them, they're outside the government.
From
They need
where?
to survive.
Let me tell you, Ken, I am a very big believer in building political parties as institutions of governance. In fact, a country, a democracy, a government is as good as its political party or political system. You know? It is the way we are going to detribalize our politics, is to build political parties, strong, credible, issue-founded political parties. That's what we should do, right? And on this, I have said not once, not many, not once, not twice. On this, I have said you must give credit to my former party called ODM. We started ODM together with others. Yeah, at least they have gone. You know, they've existed for long enough. Unfortunately for me, Jubilee, which was my party, was destroyed. You know, by characters there. So what I am a strong believer of parties as institutions of governance, and sure that there will be adequate resources always
For the political
political parties.
Okay.
The challenge that we have is money was provided. It was sent to the ORPP, you know. But the challenge is some parties went to court to quarrel about the amounts. Surely, as somebody who respects the rule of law, do you want me to go and override?
Okay.
You know?
How does this?
So, the same way I am waiting, the court have taken, the people have gone to court, I cannot appoint CASS, I am waiting. So, those ones are also waiting.
Okay.
People have gone to court. When the court decides, because we all respect the court, we will
Your Excellency, you have been elected for the first 5-year term. I want to bring in an aspect of your election that perhaps would be of interest. There's something that happens in this country, political patronage. Already we are seeing conversations going on in your own party, for example, with Nairobi County, and I know my colleagues will talk about it, where Johnson Sakaja is actually put on the chopping board. We supported in this election. You have to do our bidding. But my question is, based on some of the proposals in the past, for example, the BBI proposed 7-year term. Straight after your swearing in, there was an outrageous proposal on removing the term limit, which you rejected as soon as it was mentioned. But my question is, would you, now that you sit on that seat, would you propose, for example, that what was being mooted then, a 7-year term, for example, an amendment of the Constitution, a single term for the president, ends this patronage so that you are not heavily burdened by the next election in 2027? So, you know, I have a 7-year term, 1 term, I'm gone. Would you say that would be important to end this culture of political patronage?
I don't have the monopoly of making proposals for changing the Constitution. I have made mine. Why don't you make yours? Including even that one. That's okay. There's no problem. Let us all, because the Constitution is not about a person. Sindio, Bwana Smart?
Yeah.
So even Ken, that suggestion you are making, you can make, or others can make whatever they want, whatever suggestions they want. It will be assessed on its own merit. It will be processed by the structure provided by the Constitution, either as a parliamentary initiative or as a citizen initiative, whatever. So there are many proposals that can be considered. I have made the ones that I think, for me, from where I sit, my desk, I want the issue of two-thirds gender sorted out for two reasons. Number one, I made a commitment to women of the Republic of Kenya. And number two, I found a challenge on the desk left by Uhuru Kenyatta on dissolution of parliament on account of failure to have two-thirds. I have an interest from where I sit as president. I have an interest in accountability. That's why I'm proposing that let us have ministers go to parliament to answer questions. I have an interest in accountability. That's why I want the leader of an office be created of the leader of the opposition so that my challenger is not left addressing people in funerals. At least he has an office and a bureaucracy to support him.
Mr. President,
I have to ask this question.
No, I'm just saying,
yes.
We create a forum, a respectable forum for the alternative government, to also function, so to keep government on.
Okay, Mr. President,
and I'm telling you,
yes,
when I talk about creating an office, I am not talking about creating a job for a person.
Okay, Mr. President.
I am talking about creating an institution that will outlive all of us and support the delivery of government services by keeping the executive on check.
But are you captured as a politician with patronage? Are you captured or it's okay? It's a phenomenon that is accepted.
Let me tell you.
Yes.
Politics world over is about interests. Politics is about interests. So you can never have politics that don't have interest. Even the reason people vote for me is because they have an interest. Mtu ana time, asila fund, nitapata hapa. Hapa, nitapata mambo yangu ya ile universal. Hapa, iko maneno yangu ya kilimo. So people vote for interests. And for the case you have mentioned about Nairobi and what have you,
yes.
That's a political challenge we have as a party. We will sit down as a party and sort it out.
Okay.
We have the acumen to do it. We have a new governor in Nairobi. There are issues. He's trying to do this. He's trying to do that. Some he gets right. Some maybe he needs a bit more consultation, something like that. And that's why I am there.
You're micromanaging.
I will. No. We will support. We will support all our governors. Some of them are making the right decision. Some of them are not. We just managed to do something about Meru. In fact, as I talk to you now, there is a conversation with Meru leaders, which my deputy is going on with, to make sure that we support them politically, because the governor does not have so much experience in managing.
So you need to manage that.
So we have to help.
Mr. President, I understand that we are out of time.
Yeah.
Okay. I need to hand over to our lead moderator, but we've been here for, I think, over 2 and so hours.
Yes.
I haven't seen the office of the first daughter. We'll finish that as you take us home. Where's that office situated?
Leave my daughter Charlene alone. These are kids. They are just they are just being children.
Okay.
So very well, James, that there is no such office. This is a girl who is just being herself, a child. She has this space with her colleagues. Colleagues are pushing her. Oh, maybe we could do this. Maybe we could do this. But she's okay. She's just
tapping into the privilege.
She's just being the daughter of William Ruto, and sometimes she doesn't know the divide between the mother and the father. So
all right, Mr. President, we have less than a minute, and let's use that to look at. You promised that there would be 50-50 gender representation in cabinet. You have 15 male CSs, 7 female CSs. You have 39 male PSs, and 12 female PSs. What happened?
I could have done better. But as I told you, politics is about balancing many things. You're balancing regions, you're balancing age, you're balancing this, that, the other. And you know, there was even a very interesting scenario. One of the female governors called me and told me that, please make so-and-so PS. And of course, he was pushing for a male person. So I told her, Governor, I already have problems, you know, with the women. Instead of you pushing me to appoint more men, you should be pushing me to appoint some more women. So that is why, part of the reason why I have appointed a gender advisor in my office, because I intend to pursue this thing beyond the appointments I have made in cabinet and in PSS. I am pushing the agenda of two-third gender rule so that we can sort out and expand the space of women beyond the appointments we are making, so that we can create that much more room.
Mr. President, thank you so much for your time. And thank you, the viewer, for support and positive. I think it is the work of the President.
I am used to that space. So thank you very much, Sam, and your team, for also finding time for us to have this conversation. And thank you very much, the great people of Kenya, for listening to us. My assurance is that we will not drop the ball, and we will make sure that we discharge on our commitments.
All right. From the rest of us, it is good night. My name is Sam Gituku from Citizen TV. Bye for now.